What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Nick Farabuagh here with you guys, and I am joined by a very special guest, my guy, Antwan Staley from the New York Daily News. How you doing, man?
I'm going all right. How you doing?
I'm doing well. If you can't tell, Antoine writes about the Jets, which we always try to have another beat writer on with the opposing kind of locker room viewpoint. I got you guys covered on the Steelers, but let's talk about the Jets, Antoine, because this one, I've kind of told the viewers this week, this doesn't like there's the storylines that we've talked about that you see on all the talk shows. Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers, there's no extra juice to this week one like than there usually is to me. It just feels like one though that is going to be physical. I feel like that's the one thing I've
Yeah.
heard from all the Steelers players is we are prepping for this one to be physical, ground and pound. Of your observations of Tanner Engstrand's offense just throughout training camp and now, is the ground game a focus? Is it similar to Detroit, or is he putting his own spin on it?
A little bit of both. Like I think it's some of the similar concepts that the Lions have used there, but also kind of using the strengths of Justin Fields too. As you know, like he can move around the pocket using his legs, and I think the Jets want to take advantage of those skills. So the best way to do that is have Justin kind of roll out with some passes too. Also utilize Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis too. So I think it's going to be a very run heavy offense. That's why you add a fullback because a lot of times a lot of teams don't necessarily use fullbacks anymore, but the Jets thought it was very vital to their offense. So, yeah, I think considering their wide receiver position at the moment outside of Garrett Wilson, it's a lot of questions there. So I definitely think, they're going to try to have some kind of physical presence on Sunday, but they're playing against another physical defense there in the Steelers where, you got TJ Watt. I assume, you might have Cam Haywood as well, Highsmith too as well. So, yeah, it's definitely a physical team with a lot of different story elements. And I think it's going to be a really, dogfight at times.
I know I was talking to one player that told me he's like expecting 40 or more rushing attempts in this game. Like that's the type of things they're feeling in this. Obviously, the Steelers know what Justin Fields is like. They know
Correct.
how he's been. With the Steelers, he was a good game manager for them. Didn't turn the ball over a ton. He had his ups and downs. He had some weird accuracy misses at times. The processing post snap wasn't great, but he also has a great arm, and he took some strides from his time in Chicago. He was no longer a walking turnover. What has Justin been like in New York, and how has he performed throughout training camp? And how has this passing game kind of worked with Garrett Wilson? Mason Taylor has had some really good reports coming out of camp, but has anyone else outside of Garrett Wilson stepped up?
Well, I'll start with Justin Fields. Like he had an uneven training camp. Like a little sometimes he had like I remember one day he had his best practice of the summer, and then the next day he came out and had his worst practice. So it just kind of what you've been getting for Justin Fields too. Just kind of basically his whole career. Like some days he'll games will be really good, some days not so good too. I think the thing that I've noticed as far as the passing game is like at times like he's been hesitant to throw the ball down the field, held the ball too long at times. Also throwing interceptions as well, turning the ball over. And I think the Jets want him to, they said they're going to let him play quarterback, meaning that they're going to let him just, do his thing. Let's try to throw the ball down the field, but also utilize, his legs too. But, I definitely think he's done that at times. Like it's just been hit or miss there. And in terms of the other wide receivers, it hasn't been a lot. It hasn't been really good, honestly. You got Garrett Wilson, who I think is going to command a lot of attention. The Steelers have really two veteran corners there, obviously, that can, take their turns on Garrett Wilson. But yeah, I mean, it has not been good. They got Josh Reynolds, who's probably going to be the number two wide receiver on Sunday. Had a put a bit of a journeyman type of career there. Tyler Johnson to probably get elevated to as well. Xavier Gibson. Also have Arian Smith, the rookie from Georgia, who has some problems with drops too as well. So yeah, it's a lot of uncertainty with the wide receiver room. But I think that's why they're going to utilize Breece Hall in the passing game too, in addition to his running ability, and also Mason Taylor, the rookie out of LSU, who I think they really really like too. So yeah, it's definitely the passing game has not been crisp as much as the running game this year. So that's why I think they're gonna really run the ball, put an emphasis on that.
Yeah, no, I know the Steelers have been focused all on Breece Hall, Braylon Allen. The one thing Mike Tomlin said is in the passing game, you can't let Breece get loose because he did last year against
Yes.
the Steelers for a big gain in that game. I think he got like a 50-yard reception on just a route in the flat and it kind of
Yeah, that
broke
was
loose.
that was before the collapse in the second half. Like, yeah, that was the
Yes.
first half of the game. Yeah, where everything seemed like it was going well for the Jets too, and then that interception by Rodgers pretty much changed everything.
It did. It did. It changed it on the turn of a dime, and then George Pickens started dunking on everybody, and that was that. And this game, it doesn't feel like it's going to be nearly as similar, right? Maybe some downfield passes. I think the other kind of big matchup I'm looking at, specifically on the Steelers' offense versus the Jets' defense, is obviously DK against Sauce. I think this is a
Yeah.
a big one for the Steelers, considering how much they are going to utilize DK Metcalf. He is there very similar to Garrett Wilson. He is their ex number one receiver. And outside of that, I think Calvin Austin's going to be there too, but it's going to be a mix of him, Roman Wilson, Betsko Ronick, Scotty Miller is going to be in there. And then they're going to be very tight end multiple. Jonnu Smith, Darnell Washington, Pat Fryman, Connor Hayward. All four are going to get playing time. But how is this Jets secondary? It's a little different of a secondary. There's still, the pieces and bits that but no DJ Reed. Michael Carter's back. Sauce Gardner's there. So there's a little bit of change. But how has the secondary looked overall in training camp? And how is Sauce approaching this game against DK? And he's had a lot of success against DK in the last two matchups they've had in the NFL.
Yeah, Steelers fans might be familiar with the corner that's on opposite of Sauce Gardner now, Brandon Stevens, who really struggled last year with the Ravens too. But I will say, in training camp in the preseason, he played really well. Like he was always in the right position there. It seemed like in Baltimore at times, like he couldn't get his head turned around a little bit too quick, like quick enough, or it was a little bit slow to, making plays there, and he got beat pretty regularly, especially last year. So. Yeah, they hoping it's not going to be the case there. But as far as Sauce and DK, yeah, I remember the game against Seattle last December, and Sauce did a really good job. I know Sauce didn't necessarily have the year that he envisioned last year, but one of his best matchups was against DK. He pretty much contained them and shut them down for the most part. Seattle still ended up winning the game there. I think a lot of people may remember Leonard Williams, his 100-yard touchdown, pick six on Aaron Rodgers, the big boy. So I think that really changed the momentum of that game too as well. But I think Sauce is also dealing with a little bit of injuries too. Well, right now has a bit of a quad injury that he's been dealing with too as well, along with the calf and preseason. And yeah, I mean, I think. They think he'll be 100% ready for the game, but as long as he's ready, I think it's going to be a fascinating matchup to watch. Both of those guys that are big guys. Obviously, DK is more of a physical type presence with his muscles and everything like that, and Sauce is very handsy. Like he's a guy that very long, rangy, likes to get his hands on the football there, but not necessarily a big interception guy, but he will swat the ball down. So yeah, I think it's going to be up to. I'm curious to see like how Aaron Rodgers approaches that, considering he practiced against Sauce Gardner like all through the summer of last year, so he knows his tendencies really well, and also the tendency of the Jets defense. So I think, and that might help him a little bit too in how to game plan for the Jets defense.
I agree. And I actually think, that we talk about these matchups, but the matchups I think that are going to win this game are the trench matchups. Steelers
Yeah.
O line versus Jets D line, Steelers D line versus Jets O line. So this Jets O line, I mean, I looked at it on paper to start the week and I was like, I kind of like the pieces here. Fashanu, Membu, Vera Tucker, though, going down with an injury
That's
changes things.
huge.
I'm assuming Tippmann is going to switch out to right guard. Myers will be the center, and then you have Simpson at left. But how this Jets O line, how much of a test is it going to be? Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, T.J. Watt, Keanu Benton, no Derek Harmon, but still a really good unit, obviously.
I think even with Vera Tucker, it would have been a challenge. But now you take account who I think their best offensive lineman is somebody that's versatile, has played four different positions on the offensive line, and he's no longer there for the entire season. And now you have a rookie right tackle that's probably going to be going up against TJ Watt pretty regularly. Although I really like Mimbu, I think he's going to be a really fascinating, really good player. But this is a tall order, especially your first game in your career, to go up against one of the best pass rushers in the game, and TJ Watt. And not to mention, as you alluded to, Cam Haywood, Highsmith. Like you're not going to get any breaks with this team, whether TJ Watt is lined up against you or not. And he struggled in the joint practice against the Giants, who have a very similar type defensive line too, where they have Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, also Brian Burns ended up getting two sacks against Membu too as well. So yeah, he definitely had his struggles against a similar type defensive line. I'm curious to see how much help they give him. I know Tippmann has played right guard before, so that'll help too. But Josh Myers struggled in the preseason. Like he was not good to the point where, although I know they've had the center competition, but um, The only thing I think I get Myers give the heads up on Titman is the Titman does has high snaps at times. So I definitely think, Myers does have that rapport with Justin Fields, especially dating back to their college days. So that might help him a little bit. But yeah, I think the offensive line, you can't say the offensive line is better than what it was like 3 days ago, because it's certainly not, especially going up a game like this. And the Jets better get used to it, because they got a tough, like, after this, they got Buffalo, they got Tampa Bay, two other physical defenses too. So the road doesn't get any easier for him at all.
No, it doesn't. Obviously, Cam Hayward question, I guess, if he's going to play. I think he will. I said that in the video today. I think Cam Hayward's going to be out there, but we'll see how that all goes. The Steelers have a really outstanding rookie that they're very excited about in Y.A. Black, who will fill in for Derek Harmon. So we'll see how he goes as well. That's kind of going to be a really fun matchup. I actually, the most fun I'm going to have, I think, is watching the Steelers O line, because this is the young unit. It's got a lot of ifs on it, Antwan, but it's also got a lot of tantalizing talent. Troy Faltano in his second game ever gets Jermaine Johnson. That's a fun matchup. Will McDonald and Broderick Jones. We'll see what happens there. You got Quinnen on the interior. And then you got guys like Jawan Briggs and Harrison Phillips that came in to theoretically boost their run defense. So, how has this Jets defense kind of looked against the run, maybe in those joint practices in the preseason? And how is they are approaching this matchup with the Steelers O line that's young, but certainly has I think some intriguing pieces to work with.
Well, Jermaine did not play in the preseason at all. Actually, they did kind of took him off the PUP list pretty late in training camp. So this is really going to be his first opportunity against another, unit of any kind, really. So I'm curious to see how he performs out there on the field. Like, if you remember, he tore his Achilles week 2 last year against the Titans. So this would be his first in-game action. So he might be a little slow to come back early on. So yeah, that matchup is going to be really fascinating. Brandon Jones and Will McDonald, because a lot of people want to over here, like a lot of people wanted Roger Jones with that particular draft that year, but instead, go in a different direction. So I'm curious to see how that matchup is going. Till Will McDonald was an absolute freak in the preseason and training camp. He had 10.5 sacks last year. He's much bigger. He's faster than what he was a year ago. So I think they're going to rely heavily on him. And also Quentin Williams. Quentin Williams is one of the best defensive tackles in football. So I'm curious to see how they approach that. I imagine Quentin's going to get doubled and triple teamed at times, just simply because he commands such a presence in the inside. And also, the Jets also recently added Harrison Phillips from the Vikings, so that'll give him a little bit of run presence in the inside. Especially, they needed a tag team partner for Quentin, because a lot of times, like, they would just load up on him, and he wasn't able to be that pass rusher or also run defender at times. So yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting matchup there, especially adding Harrison Phillips. That gives them a little bit depth, inside there. Outside of that, it's still some questions, just kind of what the other guys can do there on this second unit. But they're definitely going to rotate a lot of guys in this game in particular, especially since it's going to be week 1.
Helps to have a good linebacker duo like they do. I mean, Sherwood, Quincy Williams,
Yeah.
good group back there. It is interesting. The Steelers' run game was not clicking at a high level in the preseason, but they want to run the ball. That's on. They want to do play action. Obviously, a big part of this game. So we'll see if they can run the football. I think if they have to rely on Rodgers' arms, we'll see. But speaking of Aaron Rodgers, Antoine, I do kind of want to get your take on this. Over a 17 game season, what do Steelers fans expect from old man Aaron? Because we've heard a lot, but he never played in the preseason. He's had a pretty good camp. It's not been a sterling camp, but it's been a good one, a good steady camp. Was he like that last year in training camp? One, he looks a little better moving around this year. Maybe it's the year two after the Achilles, but what can Steelers fans expect from Aaron? And do you think the year, that kind of the progression over the year, was the second half maybe more of the Aaron Rodgers that it would be, or is he probably just going to be like he was last year, where it was up and down all the year?
I think you're going to get glimmers of the old MVP Aaron Rodgers there. I think, starting in training camp last year, like, you started to get a little bit of that there. He started to move a little bit better as the season went on. And then once the season got started, then I think he started taking those hits. He ended up getting hurt a little bit too early on, but he still continued to play through the injury. You could tell later on in the season he started to feel a lot better because he was starting to move around the pocket. He played well. I think about games in particular against the 2 games against the Dolphins and also the Jaguars. Those were probably his best games of the year. So I think you're going to get I think you'll get a much better Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think you're going to get MVP Aaron Rodgers, especially when he's almost 42 years old. I mean, I think that guy is, as far as consistently, it's going to be gone. But, I think in certain games, like you're going to get, glimmers of, he still has a great arm. I still think he can move a little bit in the pocket. I think there's been a lot of talk about he's a statue back there. I don't think he's a statue, but he can't move as well as he used to, obviously, but I don't think he's a complete statue like Joe Flacco is, like in the lead there. So yeah, I think you're going to get some peaks and valleys at times, but I think he has a good enough quarterback play, especially with the talent around him, to get Pittsburgh to the playoffs. Now beyond that, I don't know, but I think is talented enough to be able to get that team to the playoffs, especially how well they coach. Because a lot of people just blame Aaron for what happened last year, but it's a lot that went into it. I think the first, snowball that started to affect the Jets was firing Robert Saleh after week 5. And I think that just set the trend for all the bad stuff that kind of happened after that. I know they tried to they traded for Devontae Adams, and they're getting Hassan Reddick back, but none of that really mattered. When you have poor coaching, like none of that can really matters out there on the field. So, and I think the Steelers, one thing that'll help him is much better coaching than what he had a year ago.
Yeah, I do think that will help, and I think they probably get to the playoffs. I'm not sure they're gonna have success there, but we will see.
Yeah,
Um,
same.
right,
Yeah,
like we will
I think
see.
they're good enough to get there, like a wild card spot. But beyond that, it's going to depend on just, the players around them and also just how the defense plays too.
Right, and who they draw. I mean, if they get draw
Yeah,
Houston, a little different than drawing Baltimore.
maybe. Yeah,
Right.
Jacksonville. So I have Jacksonville winning the division, but if they can draw one of them, then I think that helps. If you're drawing Buffalo, Baltimore, or Kansas City or somebody of that nature, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, good luck. I agree. From the Pittsburgh view, I think we all kind of think ground and pound game. It's probably going to be a low scoring one, defensive affair. How do you see this playing out from the New York side of things?
I think the Steelers win, but I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think you didn't have Aaron didn't play in the preseason at all. Justin Fields played a little bit. This last performance was not good. He actually had more rushing yards than he did passing yards against the Giants. So they got to put that in perspective. So I think both quarterbacks are going to be a little bit rusty there. There's a lot of unknowns there. The Steelers don't necessarily know what the Jets are going to do with their new coaching staff. The Jets don't necessarily know what the Steelers are going to do, although they had some experience with Arthur Smith's offense, going up against it. But now you got Aaron Rodgers. Is it his offense? Is it Arthur Smith? Is it a mix of both? So there's a lot of uncertainty there. But, I just think, the talent, is going to, be the difference in this game. I think the Steelers are the more talented team on both sides of the football. And then you have a very smart quarterback that knows how to pick apart, that Jets defense. He may not always be able to do it, but he knows Jamin Sherwood. He knows Quincy Williams. He knows Sauce. He knows Jermaine and Quentin and all those guys and their tendency and you can't that experience going up against them, I think is going to be key for them. And I know Justin Fields also went up against the Steelers defense, but I feel like the personnel has really changed a little bit over there too. So yeah, I haven't said that. I think it's going to be like a 17-10, 17-13 game. I like Pittsburgh, to barely pull it out, especially considering it's going to be apparently it's going to be a home game for them because it's going to be a lot of Steelers fans there at MetLife.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I 100% am with you. I think this is going to be a slugfest. I remember it down in Atlanta last year when the Steelers kicked 6 field goals and won 18 to 10. That was a nasty game to watch. It was a run, ground and pound game. The offense was all out of sorts. The defense balled out. I really like the Steelers. As long as Cam is playing, I love the Steelers' defense against this Jets.
Yeah.
I really like the Jets against the Steelers offense too. The Jets D against the Steelers. Oh, like if you're playing fantasy, like you might want to play stream one of their both of these teams if you got them. So I like both of them, but like I think my finals like 16-10, 16-13, something very ugly.
Yeah, that
So
sounds about right. Yeah, I
it's
think I think some people have said to me they were like, "Well, we think Aaron Rodgers may throw for 400 yards." I'm like, he hadn't played in the preseason. Like, I don't see that happening. Like, I'm sure he may in his mind he might want to, but I think ultimately he's going to do what it takes to win the game. Like, I think his revenge is winning the game and beating Aaron Glenn that way, not necessarily throwing for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns.
100%, 100%. If and Aaron Rodgers notoriously a slow starter of the season, so like totally expecting him to come out and maybe have sub 200 yards. Honestly, would not be surprised if he did. Just considering how this game's going to go about. So we will see how it all goes. Antoine, thanks for coming on, man. Let them know where they can follow you, read your stuff, watch you, all that great stuff.
You can find me at Antwan Staley, just easy as that. On all social media platforms, it's Twitter, X as well. Find my work at the New York Daily News at nydailynews.com.
All right, guys. If you want to check my stuff out, make sure to follow me on Twitter, Farabuagh FB. Check out the YouTube channel, Steelers Penn Live, and make sure to read the stuff, pennlive.com /Steelers. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, and I will be back on Sunday.